Two detectives, Luke Bascom and Misha Frank, arrived at the Miller home. They didn't knock. They didn't announce themselves. They simply barged in, their team right behind them. The family woke up to chaos, officers shouting, footsteps stomping through their house, drawers being yanked open, cabinets emptied onto the floor. No time to think, no time to react. Eddie and Manda Miller, still half asleep, had no idea what was happening. But they knew one thing: this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a simple mistake. The cops weren't leaving without someone in handcuffs. Detective Luke wasted no time. He told the Millers he had a warrant and they were for the 13-year-old boy Jaime Miller. Before the parents could say a word, officers were already moving. They found Jaime in his room, still groggy, still confused. He was under arrest on suspicion of murder. The kid didn't fight. He didn't argue. He stood there shaking, until his body gave up on him. A dark stain spread across his pajama pants. His father had to be called upstairs to help him change. Meanwhile, the search tore through every inch of the house. Nothing was off limits, not the kitchen, not the bedrooms, not even the parents' dirty laundry. They were looking for anything that tied Jaime to the crime. The murder weapon, bloody clothes, anything. The Millers kept demanding answers, but the officers ignored them. They had their orders. Jaime was dragged out of the house. His parents tried to stop it, swearing their son could never do something like this. Their words didn't matter. They never do in moments like these. Eddie whispered to his son to stay quiet until they got a lawyer. He promised they would get through this. But as Jaime was taken away, all he could do was cry, pleading for someone to believe him, swearing he didn't do it. Luke reminded him to stay quiet. Anything he said could and would be used against him. Then, a temporary guardian was assigned to watch over him. At the station, the sergeant got straight to business. He asked Jaime if he wanted a lawyer. The boy nodded. Then came the next question: did he have one, or would the station assign one? Jaime had no one, so the station would handle it. Next, they asked about a responsible adult. A minor couldn't go through this alone. So, Jaime wanted his father. The intake questions kept coming. Medications. Number medical conditions. Number history of self-harm. Number. Then came the final piece: Jaime was going to be held in custody. The next 24 hours belonged to the police. After that, he would face interrogation. Until then, he'd wait in a holding cell. Meanwhile, Detective Luke sat down with the Millers. He explained the situation. Eddie was already suspicious. A free lawyer? That meant one thing: he wasn't any good. But with no other choice, the Millers agreed. Manda, still furious, demanded to know how the cops could treat them like this. Luke stayed calm. If they wanted to file a complaint, they could. But the law was the law. Then Jaime had asked for his father to be there throughout the process. That meant Eddie would sit through the interrogation, the blood tests, everything. Luke made one thing clear: if Jaime had shared anything about the crime with his father, Eddie wouldn't be allowed in. Eddie didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. Jaime hadn't told him anything. Because Jaime hadn't done anything. Before leaving, Eddie asked Manda to keep quiet. No talking to anyone. Not until they knew the full story. Meanwhile, Jaime is taken for a health check. The nurse examines him, noting everything. When he's alone with his father, the boy's composure shatters. Tears fall as he begs Eddie to believe him. Eddie stays steady, giving him the assurance he needs. Yes, he believes him. He urges Jaime to eat, promising everything will be fine. Soon after, their lawyer, Paul Barlow, arrives. He introduces himself, outlines his role, and explains that the officers will provide the key details of the case. He also reminds Eddie of his responsibility, to keep Jaime calm through this process. Paul meets with the detectives next. They give him the basics, withholding deeper details for the formal interrogation. With limited information, Paul returns to the medical evaluation. Eddie is there as Jaime undergoes tests. A swab is taken, fingerprints recorded. But then, a blood sample is requested. Jaime refuses, his fear of needles paralyzing him. The officers make it clear, he has no choice. A refusal could hurt his case. After a long hesitation, he caves. But it's not over. A full-body search is required. Eddie immediately objects, but Paul steps in. It's protocol. Hidden injuries, concealed items, everything must be checked. Jaime sees the distress in his father's face and decides to comply. Eddie nods, his discomfort evident. Before the interrogation, Paul meets with them again. He reassures Jaime and makes one thing clear. He's not here to ask if Jaime did it. That's not his job. His job is to protect him. But he doesn't sugarcoat it. The cops already see Jaime as guilty. When they start asking questions, there's only one response. No comment. They run through practice questions. Paul guides him, answer some, avoid others. If unsure, look to him or Eddie. They'll be right there. Alone before the interrogation, Eddie turns to his son and pleads for the truth. If there's anything Jaime hasn't said, now is the time. Jaime doesn't hesitate. His eyes meet his father's. He didn't do anything. The interrogation begins. Detectives start with the basics. Where was he last night? What did he do? Jaime sticks to the plan. No comment. Then Luke places a thick file on the table. Screenshots, messages Jaime sent on social media. Negative comments toward women. But he denies any resentment. Luke shifts tactics. What about his friends? Those always appearing in his Instagram photos? Jaime hesitates. He names a few but avoids confirming if they were together that night. The detectives exchange a glance, then slide another photo forward. Katie. A classmate. What was their relationship? Jaime states bluntly. They weren't friends. Frank challenges that. Katie often commented on his posts. That suggests friendliness, doesn't it? Jaime falters, then concedes. Maybe. Then Jaime asks, was it really Katie who died last night? The question is too precise. Too calculated. Did he already know? Luke lays a forensic report on the table. The crime scene, Katie, found in a parking lot. Stabbed 7 times. Jaime insists he had nothing to do with it. Then, the detectives bring out the next piece of evidence, security footage. It shows Jaime walking behind Katie. A steady distance. Eddie, his father, turns to him, pleading for an explanation. Jaime denies following her. He had no issue with Katie. But the detectives aren't convinced. Then, they drop the final blow. Another video. The ultimate proof. Jaime is caught on camera. The attack is clear. His body trembles. His breathing turns shallow. Tears spill down his face. He says nothing. Luke leans in. Does Jaime have anything to say? No. There was silence. Jaime and Eddie break down. 3 days later, Luke and Frank stand outside Katie's school. More questions. The murder weapon is still missing. Luke sends a voice note to his son, Adam, mentioning he's at the school working on a case. Elsewhere, Ryan and Tommy, Jaime's friends, talk. Ryan updates Tommy, the cops are at school. Not a good sign. Has Jaime reached out? Tommy doubts it. Probably doesn't have his phone. Ryan asks. Does he think Jaime did it? Tommy nods. He doesn't want any trouble. Ryan doesn't either, but Tommy shrugs. Too late. Jaime's already in it. Meanwhile, Adam listens to his father's voice note, but before he can process it, someone dumps trash onto his food. A classmate threatens him, demanding money. A teacher steps in just in time, breaking it up. Meanwhile, Luke and Frank seek out Jade, Katie's best friend. Luke informs her, Jamie is arrested. But they need more. The weapon. The motive. Frank asks about Katie's relationship with the guys. If they mean Jaime, Jade is clear, she never hung out with him. Frank points out that Instagram suggests otherwise. Then she drops a bomb saying, everyone knows about a certain video. Before they can ask more, she walks away. Luke and Frank walked through the school, their search for answers leading them into Jaime's classroom. Inside, the atmosphere was strange. Laughter filled the room, students cracking jokes as if nothing had happened. The crime that shook the city? Just another headline to them. Luke, unwilling to let this slide, addressed the students. If anyone had useful information, now was the time to speak. But no one met his eyes. No one spoke. As they walked, Luke shared his thoughts with Frank. Jade's anger stood out to him. She had practically spelled it out. Katie hated Jaime. But why? They needed to start picking out students who seemed off. They had more questions than answers. In another classroom they stepped in and the teacher pointed Luke out as Adam's father. That was all it took. Some students started mocking him. Luke wasn't having it. He reminded them there was a serious crime to focus on, but before the situation escalated further, the fire alarm blared and students rushed outside. In the schoolyard, Jade snapped. She threw punch after punch at Ryan, rage written all over her face. Teachers pulled her away. Ryan was escorted to the nurse's office, bruised and shaken. Luke and Frank followed. Once inside, Luke wasted no time. He stared Ryan down, laying it all out. They knew he had been with Jaime the night of the crime. So what really happened? Ryan dropped his gaze. Just hanging out, he claimed. Nothing else. Luke pressed harder. The weapon. Where was it? Ryan started looking nervous. Denied knowing anything. Then, without warning, he bolted, leaving the room before they could stop him. Later, Adam approached Luke. He wanted to talk. Luke asked if he knew anything about the weapon's whereabouts, but Adam wasn't much help. He admitted he couldn't make sense of anything. Then he brought up Instagram. Katie's comment seemed innocent at first. But Adam pointed out the hidden meaning. Dynamite, slang for an explosive red pill. A term tied to incels. The hearts, the emojis, all coded messages. Jaime wasn't just some kid in a crime story. He had been a victim of bullying. Luke's mind reeled. They had misread everything. Katie wasn't some innocent bystander. She had tormented Jaime, calling him an incel. They had overlooked crucial evidence. Ryan needed to be questioned again. But before they could get to him, he made his move. Jumped out of a classroom window and ran. Luke chased him through the schoolyard. He was fast, but not fast enough. Luke caught him and asked, did he give Jaime the weapon? Ryan hesitated. Then finally, he admitted it. The weapon was his. But he swore he never meant for Jaime to use it. He had no idea where it was now. With that confession, Ryan was arrested for conspiracy to commit murder. 7 months passed. Jaime remained in a juvenile psychiatric facility, awaiting trial. Psychologist Bryony Ariston had been observing him closely. A violent incident had occurred, and she wanted to see the footage. She watched as Jaime struck another boy. Her sessions with him continued. During their 5th meeting, she brought him hot chocolate with marshmallows and half a sandwich. Their conversation shifted to family. She asked about his grandparents. Jaime said they were like him, stubborn, set in their ways. Bryony wanted to understand his father. Jaime described him as a man who worked hard fixing toilets. He had long hours, but emergency jobs paid well. Did his father have a good sense of humor? Sometimes. Was he affectionate? Rarely. Short-tempered? Maybe a little. But Jaime was quick to defend him. His father never hit him. He just got mad like anyone else. Still, Jaime recalled one incident. In a fit of rage, his father knocked down a shed. But even then, he laughed it off. Bryony asked why Jaime chose his father as his responsible adult for the case. Jaime's answer was simple. His father never judged him, always treated him with kindness. They talked about soccer. Jaime remembered his father taking him to games. But when he made mistakes, his father avoided looking at him. Shame. Or pity. Jaime wasn't sure. Then she asked him what other activities he was good at. He scoffed at the question, dismissing it as unimportant. None of it mattered to him. Bryony explained that the training center was the safest place for someone James's age. Reformatories were for those over 15. That answer didn't sit well with Jaime. Ryan was at home, waiting for trial, while he was stuck in this place. Bryony made it clear, Ryan wasn't charged with anything serious like Jaime was. Jaime clenched his fists. The frustration, the anger, the helplessness, it all boiled over. He shouted at her, demanding to go home. He hadn't done anything wrong. His voice filled the room. The psychologist remained calm, asking him to sit down. That only made things worse. His rage exploded. The psychologist, overwhelmed by the outburst, stepped out for air, hoping Jaime would cool off. When Bryony returned, she took charge. She wasn't there to force confessions, she just wanted to understand how things got to this point. Jaime, still rattled but now embarrassed, lowered his voice. He promised to behave. He even apologized. But the moment passed quickly. As the conversation continued, another storm brewed inside him. He admitted to seeing an intimate photo of Katie, one that had spread through the school. But he insisted, there were no romantic feelings. Then, it snapped. His rage resurfaced, insults started spilling from his mouth. The psychologist asked about Katie's comments on his social media. Jaime explained, she mocked him, used cruel nicknames, made him feel worthless. He tried to confront her once. She just smirked and said, okay. That was the moment everything turned. When he asked her out, she rejected him, not with kindness but with scorn. The public humiliation followed. Instagram flooded with cruel posts, classmates cheering in the comments. He never wanted to hurt her. Revenge wasn't the goal. He wasn't a bad person. The videos of him attacking her were fake. But then came the chilling admission. He could have done it. She was scared. He had a knife. But he held back. He told himself he was better than those who might have taken advantage of her. The psychologist pressed further. Did he understand that Katie was gone, that death was permanent? His answer was unsettling. He hadn't thought about it that way. Then she made it clear, murder was a crime, and if found guilty, he would be arrested. Jaime already knew that. The session ended. The psychologist urged him to accept help, whatever the trial's outcome. That pushed him over the edge again. He shouted, desperate, as they dragged him away. As he was forced out, he begged her, don't tell the judge. Tell his father he would be fine. 13 months later, no verdict had been reached. The Miller family struggled to move on. Eddie's birthday should have been a happy day, but the past refused to let go. Manda made his favorite breakfast, but before he could eat, she handed him a stack of birthday cards. He saw a handmade card from Jaime. His mood darkened. Before he could react, Jaime's sister Lisa walked in. The work truck had been vandalized. Painted overnight. No one saw who did it. Eddie's patience snapped. He told Manda to call the police while he grabbed supplies to clean it. Manda reported the graffiti to the authorities, but they didn't wait for the officers. They just wanted it gone. She felt exhausted. Eddie assured her they wouldn't discuss this again. But she reminded him, the trial was 4 weeks away. They would all have to face it. Eddie refused to accept that. He insisted they would protect Jaime. That's when Manda suggested moving. That was too much. Eddie exploded. Why should they be the ones to leave? They had done nothing wrong. The frustration, the anger, it all came flooding back. Lisa overheard. Eddie tried to reassure her. Later, as he scrubbed the truck, a group of teenagers passed by, laughing at the vandalism. Something inside him snapped. He chased them down, grabbed one, and let his fury loose. He threw the kid's bike aside. Manda and Lisa tried to pull him away, but he was gone, lost in his rage. He grabbed a can of paint and poured it over the truck, covering the slurs. A security guard watched and he ordered Eddie to clean it up. Eddie ignored him, storming off with his family, leaving them shaken. In the car, the phone rang. It was the detention center. Jaime. He wished his father a happy birthday. Then came the real news. He had decided to plead guilty. Silence filled the car. Eddie was speechless. Manda and Lisa tried to keep the conversation light, but Jaime had already checked out. Before hanging up, he told his dad he was sorry. Back home, Manda thought Jaime seemed different. Stronger. Maybe this was the first real decision he had made for himself. But Eddie wasn't ready to hear that. Manda refused to let it go. She understood Eddie was angry. She just believed pleading guilty was the right thing to do. Eddie couldn't accept that. He didn't want to face the truth. She remembered the way Jaime pulled away from them before everything happened. Eddie blamed himself. Had he been a good father? He tried. He had wanted to be better than the example he grew up with. Jaime wasn't good at sports, but Eddie had been there, supporting him in every other way. He thought Jaime was safe in his room. But he wasn't. Eddie now saw the cracks, the warning signs he had missed. The guilt crushed him. He had failed. Now there was no turning back.